Hi, Kirsty Davis. I live in Whittlesford. We have met Heidi. So my question is, it's great. No deal is not an option. But the EU, they've given us what they're going to give us. So what are you going to do? What are you personally going to do? Because it's a wreck, it's a mess, and we need to get on with ruling the country. Your family are in Wakefield and mine are in Scotland. So it's a complete and utter mess, up and down, and I want to know what you're going to do over the next few weeks, months, to try and rectify the situation.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Sarah Lee. I'm also in Whittlesford. I'm absolutely terrified about what's going to happen in just under 3.5 months. I'm absolutely terrified about what's going to happen. I've got 2 young children. I'm in my 30s. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I understand what you're saying about the bubble in South Cambridgeshire. I'm absolutely terrified. We seem to be going nowhere. I feel completely politically disenfranchised. I feel like the Tory party have gone too right, the Labour Party have gone too left. I appreciate what that man's saying about socialists. And I just don't see where this is going. I'm feeling like, where should I emigrate to? Yeah. And I feel like a lot of people in my kind of demographic are feeling exactly the same thing. Yeah. So my question to you is, are you worried, as I am, about the brain drain? You talked about nurses earlier in the NHS and care workers, so there's also hospitality, farming. Are you worried about the brain drain? And if some kind of deal happens, what are you going to do to prevent an absolute disaster happening?
Okay, so no pressure then on me. So they're kind of a little bit related, aren't they? So the first bit, what am I going to do? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue what I have been doing, which is working with colleagues, cross-party, to try and a little bit war game and try and work out what's going to happen. Continue talking to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister does listen. We've had meetings with her on a fortnightly or monthly basis for the last year, and I spoke to her again on Tuesday night. And we're going to find a solution. This is Parliament. I've described Brexit to my constituents for a long time now as the most turbulent plane ride you will ever go on your life. And we are hitting that weather front now. It's been a little bit bumpy for a while, but we are now at the apex of it. And these next couple of weeks are going to be hell. My husband Phil said to me, the lead up to Christmas is going to be hell, Heidi, and he is absolutely right. I'm eating far too much chocolate, living on takeaways, and it's Cadbury. Oh no, it's not Cadbury's either. But I really feel like we're reaching that crunch point now. Because even if the vote is postponed from next week, it'll come back after Christmas. You know, every day feels like a lifetime at the moment. That's part of the problem, I think. But I can tell you that we will not be crashing out with no deal in March. We will not let it happen. You know, I've done the sums, I've done the analysis, I've looked at the economics of it. You know, no parliamentarian will support that. I think it'll be, if I'm going to make a punt on it, I'm going to go either, I think, 60-40. We'll get the Norway Plus deal, 60%, or it'll go in people's vote and we'll push Article 50 back, which will result in Remain. That's my punt. But one thing I can tell you, because this is all really uncertain, we will not be crashing out with no deal. I absolutely guarantee that there's no way on earth that will happen.
Just withdraw Section 50.
Yeah, I think, I mean, withdrawing Article 50 is of course an option. But for the reasons I talked about earlier, in that sense of democracy and how people in the rest of the country feel, I think that would be probably too politically too hard. It would be suicidal. You know, because MPs, a lot of them do think about their job. You know, and if they're going to get not elected at the next general election, they'll think about that. But what am I going to do is I'm going to keep hunting around with sensible colleagues. I don't give 2 hoots what party they are. We will find a solution that will be safe for our economy, safe for security, and safe for us in South Cambs. And we will work until whatever time of the night we have to, and we'll find that solution. Because at the end of the day, this is democracy. And I need more chocolate in the meantime to get rid of it.
Sally Page from Gambling. The common market was fine. It was a small club of very similar nations, size, economics, population, countries that had a very strong identity of their own.
Microphone towards you, please.
The EU is a bully. It has, at the moment, 28 members of such diversity, such economic difference, and it's not meant to work, I don't think. They want a European army, they want more federalism. Britain is not like that, and we don't want that. And I think the sort of things that have come out of the unelected people in Europe who've drawn up this negotiation, this deal, they haven't taken into account, as I think they haven't for years, a lot of the things that worry people in this country. The fishing policy is terrible. There was a problem about bees. There's a problem about pesticides, with which we disagree. I'm not a political animal in any shape or form, but these sort of things, when we had the referendum, were the sort of things that made me vote. We have got 4 children, one of whom lives in Germany and has taken out her German nationality, citizenship, because she's very cross with mum and dad.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Belong. I'm an EU citizen living in the UK. There are 3 million... of us, there are 1.2 million UK citizens in Europe, and they're not all sitting on the Costa del Sol. They are working, they are doing jobs. We are your neighbours, your friends, your employers, your employees. I've been in this country for a very long time. My children are half English, obviously. We are extremely worried because we are the children of this divorce. And we have been squeezed out. I understand the heated debate, and I understand all the arguments, but we have been squeezed out of this debate altogether. People seem to think, oh, that's all been settled. It's not been settled. Even today, Theresa May came up with a new amendment to, if there is no deal, she's trying to give a sop to the Brexiteers, taking some of our rights away, so that Brexiteers will vote for, for her deal. We've been bargaining chips. And my question to you is, will you continue to work for fair treatment for EU citizens both here and UK citizens in the EU, which is both in Britain's interest and is also the morally right thing to do? Thank you.
That's the biggest round of applause of the night, because we talk about I've been talking about economics all night, haven't I? It's about people. And that's the bit I absolutely agree with you, that hasn't been, it should have been the first thing that we said as a country on the morning after that vote. But politicians aren't perfect. I think Theresa May's tried really hard to make, to change. That's your view.
No, we don't agree with you on that one.
That's your view, I work with her.
Sorry.
So, I think she's tried really hard, realised perhaps she should have said something a bit quicker.
From the beginning. And the first thing that Theresa May said was that we wouldn't have any rights until unless she wants to. And this is not right. It's not fair on us.
I'll just say you're talking to somebody who had a German mother, so I...
You should know that.
Yeah, and I do. I'm just trying to give a little bit of context to where we've come from and where we are now. So I do think she's worked really hard to try and bring more emotion to the debate. And I actually thought the announcement today, I, maybe wrongly, and this is the whole point, isn't it, about emotion and standing in somebody else's shoes, I genuinely took it as she's trying to offer more reassurance in case of no deal. Genuinely, that's how I interpreted it. This area would implode if we didn't have you here. It would absolutely implode. Daniel Zeitner, the city is very similar to South Cam, so Daniel Zeitner and I did a piece of work over the last few months, and I do it routinely anyway, talking particularly to my science and my academic businesses and my healthcare, my Adam Brooks, my Packworth, about what they need to see in an immigration policy, because of course what has to go alongside this deal is a new immigration policy potentially. But for me, whatever shape this deal does or doesn't come out with, EU citizens will and should always be free to move, work, family, connect. That must never change, because that is, you are the children of the divorce, absolutely. And just because the country around you and the politicians around you made a decision, you shouldn't suffer as a consequence of that. So I absolutely will continue to fight for that, partly because I can't help it, I'm half German, that's what you do. And partly from an economic point of view, because as I say, we would absolutely self-implode. But you are right to remind us of the human angle of this, because so often it gets talk about fish and we talk about economics, and you're absolutely right. The other point was your point about not wanting to be part of this big bullying bloc with the EU. The EU isn't perfect. It really isn't. But I suppose the point for me is if, and I know life isn't like this, but if the country were going to decide to pull itself away, we should have thought a little bit more about just how intertwined we'd become in the last few decades. And this is where the fight really is now, the thought of pulling it away with no deal. You know, this part of the world will be fine, we've got the brains there, we'll always be fine. But I look at Sunderland, I look at Wales, I look at places with big car manufacturing plants, where their industries are so reliant on the parts flying to and across the channel, that if we fall away with no deal, those businesses fold. Those jobs go overnight. So it's not perfect.
It's two-sided.
Well,
Europe as well. Europe as well.
But the point is, we got into bed with them.
Yeah,
and now we're so intertwined. I would rather we stayed in, and maybe I'm daft and naive, but we stay in, as David Cameron tried to, and negotiate harder to change some of the things that we're not happy with. But the question...
all the time. Why don't we have more influence?
because we need better MPs.
This stuff looks so easy from the outside, doesn't it? But you need to get grumpy and start shouting at the telly, and then that's what I'm to be. And that's what you do.
Because Germany
I really do. Okay, let's take two more questions. Let's take some more from over here. I'm going to go for another lady, and then Tim. Because you've had your hand up for a long time.
Hi, sorry, just a technical question. How do you get from the deal that is being voted on Monday evening to Norway that might be acceptable or something else? So the backstop is an issue for you. That's, you know, that was the first thing you said this evening, it's the backstop. How can you move to something that you're prepared to say yes to within the House?
Hello. I'm Tim Moore. I'm a retired councillor, a scientist and a medical consultant. Sorry, thank you. And then a medical consultant, a retired medical consultant. We have some battles. The first battle is our economy. Stupid. And anything we do which damages our economy damages our NHS, damages our science, damages our future prospects. The economy shrunk by about 4%. Relative to where we were going before in these 2 years. So just this battle has been very damaging. I want to go on to the other battles. The battles in the EU, we have won virtually every one of those of any significance. So let's remember that. We're throwing away, when we leave, the influence that we have. Now, that's another battle. The big things that are coming up are Russia, China, climate change, and trade. Now, we can't do that by ourselves.
Back to one of the earlier points earlier, wasn't it, about how we tackle some of the big issues on our own. I think, you know, it's in our nature to be collegiate. I don't think for 1 minute, if we were to leave on the Prime Minister's deal, I don't think the door would be shut on our idea. We've still got the brains here, we've still got the science. I think the EU would want to collaborate with us. But I agree, it would make it, it would change and we wouldn't enjoy the ease with which we've done it so far. On the practical stuff about how we get there, I don't really know, to be honest. This is unconstitutional, we don't know, there is no precedence for this. The sense that I have is that if the vote goes ahead, it'll be Tuesday night if it does, and it fails. It all depends on how badly it fails. You know, it's degrees, isn't it? And the suggestion is that if it were to fail by sort of up to around about 40, the Prime Minister would continue and go to the next European Council on Thursday, try and get something, I don't know what that might be, come back and try it one more time. If the vote is lost by more significant numbers, which all suggestions are that it will, what I'm picking up is that the Cabinet would then split. And you would have Amber Rudd and probably Gove, Sajid Javid, then coming to the Prime Minister and saying, come on, we need to get Norway Plus through. And if you don't, we will. So that's how I think it would go. And that would, you know, I had a suggestion, which I put to Dominic Grieve, which there's still time to do ahead of Tuesday. So you can table amendments to the legislation up until the close of the House on Monday night. And the Procedure Committee, which you're learning a lot about, quite geeky stuff tonight. The Procedure Committee has said we can have up to 6 amendments. And Hilary Benz is one that's down already, for example. The Labour Party are trying to get him to withdraw it, principally because the core part of its job around stopping no deal has kind of been done now by Grieve. Whether he does or not, I don't know. But there would be, you know, 4 or 5 knocking around. My suggestion, and I'm not an expert in this, I'm learning as I'm going, to try and test the will of the House, because that's what this is about, where can we find that common ground? I feel like I want to table everything. It's a knockout. I want to table no deal. I want to table Canada. I want to table Norway Plus. I want to table people's vote. And none of them will get an outright majority, but it might help Parliament decide which couple actually, yeah, they're the two with, it sounds so flippant, I don't mean to make it flippant, I'm trying to be pictorial, but which go through to the final, to the dance-off. I think that might be a way of doing it, because I don't want us to waste a day more than we need to worrying, thinking, plotting, scheming, constitutionally trying to work out what we can do. And that might be a pretty crude, but way of doing it. And there's a number of us that are looking at that over this weekend to see whether that's an option.
But that sounds like chocolate and wine and do it, right? But to me,
yes.
It sounds like eat the chocolate, drink the wine, and then you
I
go
do it
on Monday and do it.
But it might just be me.
Well, that's okay.
No, because the Speaker won't put the amendment and put my name on it. It needs to be. It needs to be. The Speaker will, because he won't. This is the other interesting thing. He won't pick the amendments until after the final debate starts on the Tuesday. And he will typically pick things that he sees have cross-party support and that are topics or views that he knows are, you know, they're not extreme views that only a handful of MPs feel. He will want to feel the things that, you know, the public are talking about. So we're talking about that, but I can't do it on my own. I just want to find a swift and efficient process, way of getting through this as we can. But certainly what I do know, as I say, the Cabinet would take Norway, and I think that will be the next thing that came back to us. But this is unprecedented constitutionally. There is no rule book, which is why Dominic Grieve has been trying to help create one by having at least a process of what happens, that Parliament will get involved. But yeah, it's going to be bumpy. Right, I'm going to take... I'm being looked at. Yeah. Okay, for the school hall. I'm going to take 2 more.
Well, it was crucial for Parliament to take back control and the Grieve 3 amendment. And I'm very grateful to you for signing up and voting for that. That was really important. Following on from that, I just want to say, where does that then take us? Obviously, we now have a chance for Parliament to put down amendments. There's, as you said, the Norway thing, the people's vote. Where is it going to go? And if there is, say, for instance, a people's vote option, how would it be decided? Things like what question would be asked, how many options would be on the ballot paper,
That's a good question to
Almost
ask.
transferable, and we haven't really had much from you about that so far. It'd be good to see what you're saying.
All right. And then I can't remember both it's still here, isn't it?
Thank you, Martin Bottle from Whittlesford. You seem to have a little Whittlesford enclave here. Regardless of the way we go over the next week or so, or until March, I think we as a country have a PR job to do now. I can't remember the name of the charming EU lady who is but we do in the scientific community here rely on people like that heavily. And there's a couple of things that have happened that I've been aware of in the last week. I'm a biotech consultant. One is a local company that made a job offer to a German scientist who was absolutely perfect for this particular piece of research. He was offered a very, very handsome salary to come and work here. And he turned it down, not because he didn't want to do it, but because he said his wife didn't want their children to be educated in an isolationist country. The second thing is I'm currently working on a project for a Cambridge-based biotech company who is owned by a holding company in Sweden. Now, their majority shareholders are Russian. And originally, the Russians wanted to consolidate all of their research in Cambridge because this is where all the sexy stuff happens. They've now told the Cambridge group that they're going to close the Cambridge group. They're going to reopen their labs in Sweden because they don't want any IP generated that they're going to be part of which are outside the EU. So regardless of which way we go from now, the damage has been done, and we've got a PR job to do.
Well said.
It reminds me that I didn't answer all of your question, which was about the brain drain, wasn't it? That's the same point. Yes, and you're right, and I hear that when I talk to my, whether I go to Sanger or NB, wherever it might be, I don't hear so much that people are leaving, but they're not filling posts. And that the plethora of applications that we would normally have is starting to slow down. And that's why, you know, the immigration piece in all of this is so vitally important. I do think in this part of the country compared with other parts of the UK, we are head and shoulders above already, so I'm not saying we won't struggle, of course we will, but we do start from a slightly stronger position, I think. I'm going to tell you a secret, but I've got it now. It's going to get used to it.
Go on. We won't tell
nobody else here.
No, there's nobody, not including me. But we will continue to attract money around here because we're just going to like this. But you're right, there is a human, as we've heard, job to do to repair the damage of how we've made people feel. And that won't be easy. Investing as we do have in our industrial strategy to bring our GDP, our percentage rather spend GDP on science and R&D higher than anywhere else in Europe, that's in the plan. So we're going to do that regardless. So investment will ensure that it's a priority, but it's the people angle that's more difficult. And not to take the pressure off my shoulder one bit, but as I mentioned, we do all have a role in that. You know, I try and talk to organisations, I talk to staff. I was at the TWI down at Granter Park maybe 6 months ago, meeting all their women PhD students in engineering, all over Europe. We all have a, you know, this, whatever happens, our country is coming through this. So our country has a role to play in repairing it. We might not like it, we might be a bit grumpy about it, we might think that it wasn't my flipping fault, but it's our country, who else is going to do it? So I do think, it might sound a bit flippant, but I think we all have a role in doing that. But we absolutely have to make sure that our doors are wide open to those brains and technology and people coming here, because the collaboration is not just for our benefit, it's world stage benefit when we design and invent things. And then what would go on the ballot paper if there were another vote? Well, it would be, I think, somewhere between the Electoral Commission would help with that, and MPs. If you'd asked me prior to Brief 3, I probably would have said some kind of, a bit like a mayoral election, a preference vote around no deal for people that really truthfully believe, like Deborah, I'm sure would want to see that on the ballot paper, no deal, plus whatever the Prime Minister's deal was, and then Remain.
That's a fix, isn't it?
I'm explaining my thoughts. It's not a fix at all, it'd be three options. It'd be 3 options. And I risk being probably real tomato season could come now. But I do think, given Grieve 3 and Parliament's utter rejection of no deal and the economic catastrophe that would be associated with no deal, I'm starting to wonder whether it would be more the deal, whatever form it is, or remain a straight two-way choice. But, you know, we still have to find our way through this. It might not come to pass. Norway might fly through the Commons with, you know, flying colours, and we might come out with a Norway deal. But I'm starting to feel that the vote, I think, would be, the ballot paper would be along those lines. But that, you know, the Electoral Commission involved in that. Could I ask a question of you, just as a final thing tonight before we all call it today? Just to help me. So you're in my seat in Parliament. I'd like to know, what do I want to know? I want to know how many people would like, so you're writing my amendments for me. It's a knockout. No deal at all. Norway plus and Crystal Union.
That's it. Give me a clue.
It's been a long vote. People's vote, no deal, or Norway.
What about the current deal that Theresa May has negotiated?
Yeah, sorry, you're right. Prime Minister, sorry.
We got rescinding Article 50.
We should have another question. It's quite important because this evening has actually changed my mind about what might happen. I came here very strongly feeling there should be a people's vote, and listening to everybody, it makes me feel perhaps you, the MPs, should be doing your job and take the mood. And why should we rush into anything now? Why should we be pushed into making a decision? We could just say, you know what, we're going to delay, we're going to take our time to think about what we want, and the MPs could vote for a delay, and because we're not caught by Article 50 now, and say we're going to think what we want, not what the EU is pushing us to do. So it's in your power as MPs to take control of this.
It is to a point, and I agree, that the difficulty with delaying is that does absolutely zero for our economy and our European workers that might want to come or not come here. That, you know, this period of uncertainty, that does our country no favours at all. So I think it's right to absolutely get it right, and if Article 50 can be postponed a little bit, okay, but I don't think we should pontificate around our, what were we, Norway gazing navels? Is it Norway gazing navels? I think we should not do too much of that. Brexit gazing navels, that was it. So I'm going to stick to no deal. Prime Minister's deal is the second question. Norway or people's vote. So we only get to vote once. But I don't really think you just can remain without a vote. I just think there'll be like, I think that's too hard. Although for fun we can just have that anyway at the end. So you only get to vote once. No deal, Prime Minister's vote, Prime Minister's deal, Norway or people's vote. So hands up for no deal, who wants to walk away tomorrow.
Wow.
Okay. Thank you very much. Prime Minister's deal that's on the table now.
Oh.
So that's similar, isn't it?
Much less.
Norway plus. You're so predictable. Please vote. I'm not even going to ask you about just staying. All right, Remain. Did I just incite violence? I don't know. Well, thank you very much, everybody. That's.
As one of your local councillors, I just wanted to do what you've already done and thanked Heidi. And I just remarked to myself earlier, when Heidi is as grey as some of us already are now, she'll be able to look back on this period of Parliament and say, I was there. But I really think we ought to, again, thank Heidi for turning up, engaging with her constituents in the way that she has, because that's remarkable.